was an unapologetic tale of a Marine rifle platoon in Vietnam during a few bloody months in 1969. He had since written two more well-received novels, been twice nominated for the Pulitzer Prize, and won an Emmy reporting from Beirut in 1983 for the McNeil Lehrer NewsHour. Along the way, he had become the kick-ass troubadour for a generation of combat veterans for whom reconciliation will invariably be a concept proclaimed by others, always prematurely. A few weeks after Ollie North became a household name, Jim Webb's retirement plans were shelved when President Reagan named him Secretary of the Navy. Suddenly, he was at a potentially critical juncture in the embattled North's chain of command. In military parlance, he was now the reviewing authority for whatever the Navy, of which the Marine Corps is a part, might have in store for North. "Anything that happens to Ollie comes to my desk," Webb sourly told acquaintances. The coolness, it seemed, was mutual. A fellow Marine remembers that when he mentioned to North back in 1983 that Jim Webb had just been sworn in as an Assistant Defense Secretary, North abruptly changed the subject. I was then the White House correspondent for the Baltimore Sun, but as it happened, my background was similar to Webb's and North's: Naval Academy, the Marine Corps, Vietnam, and in those early days of Iran-Contra, I picked up a familiar and troubling aroma. Others saw greed, naked ambition, abuse of authority, a breathtaking disdain for Congress and the federal bureaucracy. I saw those things too, but what I smelled was cordite, burning shitters, the disinfectant odor of hospitals. And somehow, it seemed, the Academy was mixed up in this too. North's immediate superiors on the National Security Council staff, Robert McFarlane and John Poindexter, were Annapolis men. McFarlane a Marine as well. As the bizarre tale unfolded, blossoming into the gravest constitutional crisis in a decade, I kept picking up echoes of Vietnam and an ever more insistent refrain: Ollie, Bud, and John. I remember thinking that perhaps Iran-Contra was at least in part the bill for Vietnam finally coming due. Although Webb had absolutely no role in Iran-Contra, I put him in the mix because it seemed that the anger and bitterness that infuse his novels might help explain North and the others. I searched his books for clues and found a piece of the puzzle in Fields of Fire. Pinned down in a rice paddy, the Webb-like platoon commander, Robert E. Lee Hodges, Jr., reacts bitterly to orders from those he sees as living a life of ease in the rear. "Fuck 'em. Just fuck 'em. Fuck everybody who doesn't come out here and do this." At about this time, I met John McCain, a newly elected U.S. Senator and an Annapolis classmate of Poindexter. McCain had had the worst war of all, 5.5 years in North Vietnamese prison camps, but somehow had moved beyond it. He seemed to fit into the larger story that was struggling to take shape in my mind, though at first I was not sure how. The 5 major characters in this book display vast differences in personality and style, but some remarkably similar strains as well. In a way, though none would be comfortable with this characterization, they are secret sharers, men whose experiences at Annapolis and during the Vietnam War and its aftermath illuminate a generation, or a portion of a generation, those who went. Each in his own way stands as a flesh and blood repository of that generation's anguish and sense of betrayal. Whatever they later became, hero, hot dog, hustler, or zealot, they were, for a time, among the best and the brightest this nation had to offer. And in their formative years at Annapolis and during the Vietnam era, they shared a seemingly unassailable certainty. They believed in America. So did Ronald Reagan, who made many things possible. In the fall of 1980, a few weeks before Election Day, my newspaper job took me to Carter campaign headquarters in Austin, where I hoped to get a sense of how the presidential race was taking shape in Texas, a crucial battleground state.